The glory days are here to stay, the 80s horror show. Take a stroll down memory's lane, it's time to start the show. The gory days, the gory days, the gory days, the gory days.
Welcome to the Gory Days, the show where we take a stroll down memory lane to remember our favorite horror movies from the 1980s and early 1990s. Once again, we're going to have to change that opening song and probably that tagline because we are moving away from just the 80s and just the 90s, away from pigeonholing ourselves into what is still an amazing decade and will certainly return to. But today we're taking a wide leap from there. Last week we talked about the movie Signs from 2002, and today we are leaping way ahead in the future. But before we get into any of that, I wanted to introduce our guest today. Whew, I gotta catch my breath. It is a crazy world. I guess that's why I'm all out of breath. Things are not the same as they used to be. We are living in a world where government workers are not getting paid and teachers are not working. They're striking for some pretty reasonable demands, but this is not a political podcast. This is a podcast about movies. So the person that I brought in today has a lot to share with us about the world of TV, movies, and entertainment in general. She comes from a world of development and marketing distribution, now currently an assistant at Clear Talent Group LA, specifically in the Young People's Department. Aileen O'Brien is here. Welcome.
Oh, thank you for having me.
How you doing?
To be here. I'm good.
Welcome to the Gory Days. So, the Young People's Department,
Yes.
That's ideally people 13 and under?
Actually, we represent from as early as probably, our roster starts from babies up until a little bit over 18. Our clients range, if they're over 18, they can still play younger. So really as young as being an infant up until, as long as they can still play high school.
Very cool.
So, yeah.
So I feel like I'm getting a little bit ahead of myself. Aileen, who are you?
Well, I am, should I go into like where
If you
I'm
want,
from?
yeah. Are you a
Okay.
writer? Are you a director?
Well, I kind of I've dabbled in everything. I feel like I'm a well-rounded filmmaker. I haven't really made films in a really long time, but I've dabbled in kind of everything. So I've done a little bit of writing, done a little bit of directing, a lot of producing in my time, especially in college. I did a lot of student films. So had a lot of experience with that. So I feel like I appreciate every aspect of film, TV, and the whole medium.
Have you acted?
I did when I was in high school in theater. So I am a big lover of the arts.
So you've done, a little bit of everything.
Yeah.
That's very cool. So you've directed, you've written, you've produced. Where you've been around the block, certainly more than I have. I feel like when I moved here a couple of years ago, I'm still kind of green and I'm still learning about the business. But you jumped right into it as an intern, like right away. Was that right out of college or during?
Yeah. So, when I was in college, I was a junior. I did a study away program out here in Los Angeles. I'm originally from the East Coast. That's where I went to school.
Oh, okay.
So I did a program out here for a semester, and I jumped in, did a lot of schoolwork here, and then I also interned at had a development internship at Demarest Films. So they're mostly known for the Night Manager. What's that film that just came out? Hacksaw Ridge. With Mel Gibson. Yeah.
Oh.
So it was really cool being a part of that.
Mel Gibson was in Signs we talked about last week.
Yeah. So it was really fun, and I really enjoyed learning about the business aspect of the industry. I didn't learn anything about that. So when I had that internship, I was like, whoa, this is a thing that people do for a living. This is so cool. So I really enjoyed that. And then, did a distribution internship with Oscilloscope Films. They're a really small indie and foreign film distribution company. So got some marketing experience in there as well. And then as soon as I graduated, I moved out here and I was like, I need to be here where everything's happening and I want to just absorb everything as much as I can. So yeah.
When was that? When did you move out to LA?
June 2017.
Okay. Oh, okay. I moved out here in May of 2017.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, so pretty much the same time.
Yeah.
But you jumped right into it with that internship and stuff. So developing Hacksaw Ridge. Do you want to get into a little bit of that for our listeners who don't know what that is? Is it like taking the script as it was and shoveling around a bunch of rooms? Go ahead.
Yeah, so when I had my internship, they were actually starting production for it. So I didn't get to see so much of the development process with that just because they already
they were further ahead.
Yeah, they were further ahead. So the producer on it was actually going to Australia where they filmed it. So He was actually flying there sometimes and then coming back, and I think the majority of the film they filmed in Australia. So he was kind of back and forth. So that was something that was ongoing. So I don't have I didn't have a lot of experience with reading the script or anything like that, but I did with other things. So I did a lot of reading scripts, doing coverage for that, which I really liked. I read, sci-fis, Western sci-fis, and dramas, and I did a lot of script coverage on books too. So,
oh wow.
So, and then
to be optioned into movies.
Yeah,
Okay.
and it's funny because I don't know if I can say this because of NDA stuff.
I don't know.
But I do know some films that are actually now are in pre-production.
That's pretty cool.
So which is neat. So I got to see kind of. I was actually thinking about this the other day. I saw something that I remember doing script coverage on when I was an intern, and now working in the agency world, I see that now they're casting for that project. And
you're on the other side of it now.
So it's really funny because I'm like, well, now we want our clients to get on that film. So it's really funny to see how much it's grown. And when I did the internship out here for that company, it was in 2015. So it's been just a couple of years. So it's been pretty fast paced. So I always think that's just funny to really see how films can just grow in such a short period of time. So
no, that's something that I've come to realize. I mean, I had an idea of it when I was a kid. I've watched movies my whole life, and I've loved movies, but it was always at the credits. It was always, wow, look how many people it takes to make this movie. Why does it take so many people to make this movie? And the more you learn, you realize that it takes a ton of people, way more than even on the credits to make the movie.
Even just being a PA on set, and you need someone for craft services, or actually. Something I've seen a lot more is production babies is in the credits.
Oh yeah, because movies take so long.
Yeah, so they need they call them production babies, which I think is a really cute name.
Yeah, especially I think in Incredibles 2 was a super long one of all the production babies that they had.
Yeah, it takes a village.
Yeah, but yeah, it can take years. Like I don't remember when I first figured it out, but yeah, it's like a script. Like even the movie we're talking today was written 8 to 10 years ago, and just sits in a drawer until the demographics appear or some other movie turns it makes money, and they're like, oh, okay, now we can make this now that it's safe, kind of thing. So of all of the world that you've been in, which is the most interesting to you at this point?
Oh, that's
writing, producing, distributing, developing, acting.
Yeah, I certainly cannot. I give so much credit to actors because it's a hard thing. Just being told no all the time.
Oh my god, even children actors. There's some moments in the movie today where I was like, how did they do that?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I give major kudos to them. I really, really enjoy, I think, development and creative marketing.
Oh yeah?
So seeing...
So that's kind of pre and post.
Yeah, which I find it funny that I'm like one in the spectrum and then the other, of the whole process. But it's really interesting to pitch a movie or pitch a TV series. I think it's really cool when I got to do my internship and see how they pitch an idea to someone, and then what kind of resources they use to help influence a studio or network, saying, hey, this is the reason why you should do that. We're going to attach some stars to it. This person would be perfect for it. They have a production company that would love to do this as well. And then on the creative marketing side, using campaigns or types of other resources. Actually, I'll kind of give an example. So I don't know if you've seen, when I interned for Oscilloscope, do you know the movie The Love Witch?
No.
Okay. So it's a very...
Is it a horror? The Love Witch?
Well, actually, some people might say it's a bit of a horror. It definitely... I don't know if it really stays in one category.
Multi-genre.
Yeah, it's a very art house film for sure. Anna Biller's the director.
Okay.
Basically, it's about this witch who she goes up to Northern California and she invades this town pretty much, and she kills all the men pretty much. So we used some of the props in that film, and we sent it to different places like Rolling Stone magazine and Wall Street Journal, just kind of helping hey, watch the movie. This is a prop from the movie, recreated it as just something fun. So I thought, that's a really cool way to kind of get the movie out there. And for a movie that, it's more for a niche audience. So I thought that was really cool getting to do that. And it was fun, getting the word out there, I think.
Especially
so.
on a small scale.
Yeah.
That sounds really interesting. You can take more risks. Yeah.
Absolutely. Mm-hmm.
Than just, like with these major motion pictures, it's
yeah.
usually a couple posters, a teaser trailer, a regular trailer, and then a trailer that gives way too much story away, and then the movie comes out.
Yeah. So they were really creative about it, which I was like, that's awesome.
Cool. So is that kind of where you'd want to stay? I know we're all kind of young and trying to figure out what we want to do, but do you have an idea of where you want to head, where you want to end up?
No idea. I mean,
yeah, me neither.
I know it's
maybe I'll just keep doing this.
A giant question mark. I mean, I really enjoy, like I said, I enjoy all aspects of the entertainment industry. And I working in my current position in the young people's department, I really enjoy that too. And booking our talent for jobs, I really think that's interesting. It's so cool to see them, book big jobs. They started out, doing small commercials or something, and now we see them booking these big feature films, which is so cool. So I don't know. I kind of want to do everything.
Yeah. Does it ever happen where at the Young People's Division at Clear Talent Group LA, does it ever happen where somebody comes up out of the woodwork and they've been doing commercials and stuff, and then they, because of you guys, get placed in some amazing picture like Get Out or something like that you mentioned off mic, and then they leave because they're enormous and they go over to WME or ZAA or UTA or things like that, and you have to say goodbye?
Yeah, I mean, sometimes,
especially with the kids, that must be hard.
Yeah, and also what happens is sometimes they just grow out of our division. They're not, a kid anymore, and they need somewhere where they can really grow. So that's, it's a little sad, but the agents that I assist, they've been in the industry for a really long time, and they'll always say people that come in the office, we met them when they were 5 years old, and now we go to their weddings or we go to their college graduations and stuff like that. So they keep that relationship good, which I think's I really admire. So
that's great. I didn't realize it was that personal.
Yeah.
Have you been invited to any kind of events for celebrities or things like that?
I've been to one event. One of our clients had is on a new Disney series, so I got to go to the premiere party, which was interesting. So it was a lot of fun.
Cool.
Seeing
like a Disney funded premiere party?
It wasn't Disney funded. Oh. It was her manager had a premiere party for her and her friends. So it was cool to see all the kids really excited, and it was fun. We got to watch the premiere, and it was really cute.
That is fun. So man, when you go home and you talk to people, and you do they think like, oh wow, have you met Brad Pitt, and do you hang out with, because you're a talent, you're in talent. Like if anything, you are right there, right. And as part of your job, you interact with them regularly. So are you the most popular person when you go home?
Well, I'll tell my family what I do, and they're very confused sometimes.
Parents.
It's more of when I explain my job, what I do, they'll be like, oh, okay. And they just don't get it, which is fine. I mean, I grew up in upstate New York, and that's, working in the industries, people are like, oh, you moved to LA? What? Like, it's something that's not really heard of.
One other option.
But, yeah. So I'll talk to them about that, and they'll be like, oh, okay. And then I'll tell them pretty much like, oh, these are the people I've met, going into Starbucks across the street from my office, and I just see a famous YouTuber or something like that. Or I go to funny, I went to the Los Angeles Ballet last Christmas, and down the row from me was Brad Garrett from Everybody's Loves Raymond.
Yeah.
And
I'm sure you could heir him from across the room.
Yeah. At first, me and my sister were like, that looks like him, and then we heard his voice. We're like, yep. That's it.
That's awesome.
So they find that pretty amazing. So it's just
because that's something they know. They've seen Everybody Loves Raymond. Yeah.
So when I tell them, I've met a couple people, and they're really nice and that kind of thing, they get really excited for me. It's just when I try to explain what I do, they're just like, oh, okay.
Yeah, and they just want to be supportive, but they really don't know. Yeah.
I appreciate the effort. They want to know, and they just, I know it's a weird thing.
I wonder sometimes if even some of the most successful of us, does John Krasinski go home to his parents and try to explain his success, and them go, oh, okay, and then, did you know Susie down the street had a baby? It just doesn't matter.
Yeah. And I think about it, I wonder when he started working on The Office, they're like, you're just running around, there's a camera following you, and you look at it occasionally.
Yeah.
So, but I think he's awesome. I was really excited to see him in this film. Sorry to sidetrack.
No worries. No. is there something that like you're working on privately? I know a lot of people in the industry, they find time to like carve out something for like their screenplay or for the videos that they're working on. What's something that you're doing? If it is, like, I want to boost your signal here and let people know where to find your work.
Well, I do work on something, but I haven't put it out yet. It's not out there for people to really see. I try to dabble in some writing here and there, but it's so hard to write.
Yes.
Because I feel
it's very
like
vulnerable.
It certainly is. And I feel like when I write, it'll be great when it's in my head. I'll be like, oh, this is great. When I write it down, everyone's going to love it. And then I actually do it. And I'm like, oh, no, this didn't come out the way I wanted it to.
I've been experiencing the exact same thing. You have this great idea. And then as you're writing it, it becomes... Oh, gross. Excuse me. It becomes something else. And I feel like that's probably why writing duos is such a popular thing, because being able to keep each other on track and focused and is probably easier with two people.
I think I do get a lot of advice from people. I try to bounce ideas off of them, and they're like, oh, that's great. Maybe you should try this. And that certainly helps. It's just very hard to get an idea and to really stick with it. And even when I say, oh, this turned out horrible, when I didn't expect it. I thought it was going to be great. And so it's just really sticking with it. So there are a couple things I dabble in, but...
Cool. And you have the benefit of being on the inside and reading so many scripts and books and treatments and things like that, that you have an idea of what works and what doesn't based on, I don't know, what your boss is like.
I try to read and watch everything I can to know what is great, what, my taste too, what I like may be different from someone else, and trying to learn everything I can. I miss learning.
Does having all of this knowledge kind of affect your movie watching now? And when you watch things, it's hard to kind of shake all of the things that the 50 people that are standing outside of frame.
Yeah. Funny enough, because I rewatched A Quiet Place last night, there's a part, which I'm sure we'll get into, but there's this old man that screams.
Yes.
I just
think,
big
moment.
Yeah, I just think, oh man, I wonder how many takes that took. And they were like, all right, we need you to scream as loud as possible. So I always
try to hold it in, like really wait until the last minute. Yeah.
I try to think like, wonder what that was like on set, and I wonder how long that took, or stuff like that. Yeah. So it's definitely changed my perspective, but it's also, I think I give more respect now to films and movie and TV shows, and like, that probably took forever. It took so much money to do. So
for me, it's hard to not pick when I watch a scene. It's hard for me to not picture what it was written like, how it looked on the page, and it's like, a man walks into the room and does and it's just like so many things are like, how do you write that? How would you write that to be as effective as it is visually on the page? That and the music. I'm trying I'm trying to like broaden my horizons, because it's so easy to ignore sound and music and like even lighting and things like that when you're watching a movie, because that's kind of their job, is that if they're doing it so well, you're not noticing it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
There's a lot of elements that go into it, and if one thing is off, you'll know, like you can notice it, and then
even a non-scholar, you'll notice it right away.
And it kind of takes you out of the movie, so you have to be really careful and really go all in. So
I mean, like I used to when I was a kid, I wanted to be a Foley artist. I thought that was so cool.
Yeah.
For listeners who don't know what that is, every sound effect, well, not every sound effect, but a lot of sound effects in movies are not captured on set. People walking down a hallway or putting change into a parking meter or something like that is diegetic. Is that it's diegetic.
Yeah. I think it's Dianetic. Or no, I think you're right. Sorry.
No worries.
I don't know if it's spelled.
Whatever the word is, there's people screaming at their iPods right now. Whatever the word is, it's sound that is supposed to be happening in the scene, but they couldn't record because the boom mics are, near their head. And so Foley artists will need to recreate like a dog walking down a hallway or horses galloping or even bones breaking and things with like celery wrapped in towel or literally like coconuts like going like that or whatever. And I thought that was so fascinating, and I still think of it today when I'm watching movies, and I think like, well, that sounds too perfect. Those heels walking down a doctor's lobby sounds just too perfect.
If you don't know what Foley is, I remember actually maybe a year ago there was this video that surfaced on Facebook. All my Facebook friends were sharing it, and it was this two Foley artists, and it's really funny to see when they watch the screen and then, like they'll, break celery or something. So you could find it on YouTube, I'm sure, if you're still confused.
That's the part that I'm forgetting, is that they have to do it in time with the footage, which is insane. Because they're sitting there and they're like, okay, crunch.
Yeah, and actually, it's something I really am interested in too. Is sound design. When I did a class in college, I keep bringing up all the classes I did in college.
Please.
But I did this really cool sound design class, and for our final project, we had to take an episode of Scooby-Doo, and we had to literally recreate all the
sound
sounds,
effects?
even the voices, and even...
they give you a silent clip of Scooby-Doo?
Oh yeah,
That's
silent
great.
episode.
Full episode.
And I had to redo chandelier swinging and Scooby, crashing into things. It was really fun.
That does sound fun.
It took a long time to do, but our professor was like, okay, yeah, you can, you don't have to have the Scooby voice or the Shaggy voice. You can do a crazy voice. And I don't know. People think that
because you're not Casey Kasem.
I know. I can't make voices as great as him, but a lot of my classmates were like, Aileen, you can do all the funny voices, because apparently I make funny voices, which I'm like, okay.
This one so far has been hilarious. I can't wait to hear your normal voice.
Thank you. So they made me do all the majority of the voices and the ghost in the episode.
Great.
So if you watch, I think I have it.
I wish I took that class. That sounds awesome.
It was really fun. If you listen to it, the majority of the characters are me talking. I think
that's
maybe
good experience.
So it was really fun. So I respect people who do sound design fully. That takes a long time and a lot of precision. So.
Especially with sci-fi, where a lot of the noises simply don't exist, and they have to create them with things that do exist and doctor them, or post like Chewbacca and Darth Vader and all of those noises. Yeah,
I will say one of my pet peeves is in those crime procedural shows. One of my favorite shows is Criminal Minds. I love that show. But one thing that always drives me nuts is when they're on the computers and it'll be the beep boop bop noise, and I'm like, computers don't make that noise.
I love that.
Sorry. And it'll be in NCIS too. I'm like, I'm sorry, no one. Computers don't do that.
Every keystroke makes a beep or something. Or I love when it's in super sci-fi, the whole thing will be touch screen and it's still making bloop, 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 and they'll swoosh, they'll throw something up and it'll make a big across the wall.
I don't think that's how it would sound.
But at the same time, it's if those weren't there, it would be more weird. If it was just silent and they're just going...
It adds a little flavor, I guess.
Yeah,
but I always...
But it is annoying.
Like,
for you and me. Yeah.
Yeah, but it's a whatever.
Yeah. So pivoting a little bit, what is your relationship to horror, specifically the genre?
Yes. So I used to be very afraid of horror movies. Funny enough, I think I told you the story. When I was in high school, I remember watching, it was around Halloween, on IFC, The Exorcist was playing, and I was like, oh yeah, I'll give it a watch, because, I thought I was brave, and I was an adult. I was maybe 16, 17. Okay. So I was watching it, and then I was like, nope. No, thank you. I can't do this. This is
That's a great one, The Exorcist.
Is
that 70s?
Yeah, I think Warner Brothers came out in the 70s. I don't know what year in the 70s.
1973.
73, okay. And yeah, the effects are really, for its time, the effects are really great. And I've since watched it all the way through. I still really don't like to watch it because it's really scary for me, just because I was scarred for life at 16 watching it. But it's a good movie, but it really gets in your head. So from there, I was like, never again. And then I started watching it more and more. And then I realized you have to watch horror movies with other people, because it's like riding, going to an amusement park when you ride roller coasters.
Or the haunted maze.
Yeah, you have to it causes a visceral effect. So you need to scream, but also with other people, so you realize, okay, I'm not alone.
Yes.
I'm scared. And now I feel bad sometimes when I go to horror movies and I'll watch it with other people, like my best friend Claudia. Hey Claudia.
Shout out.
Sorry, I'm gonna kind of roast you a little bit. When we went to see The Nun over the summer, she was like, no. She was freaking out in her seat, and I just couldn't help but laugh because her reactions were just really funny. So sometimes I'll kind of chuckle because sometimes the way people react
Yeah.
is funny. So it's much better when you go to the movies with other people, I realize.
But that's interesting, the reason you gave that. It's because it's like being scared, that after one where you're like desperate to look for a human connection after that and go like, this was scary to you too, right? That's fascinating.
Yeah, I've realized that it's better, the camaraderie, it's better when you watch it with someone else. And then more and more I'm realizing I can watch it on my own. It's fine if I need to. But if it's a really, really scary movie, I think I'm going to want another human with me.
Yeah.
So
I don't think what else is, the other thing that's interesting is The Exorcist, it's not necessarily super relatable, but that doesn't matter. It's not about it being like, this could happen to me. Maybe if you were Catholic, you could think like, oh no, I could be possessed or whatever, but it's more about just like it takes place in like one house on one night, and it's a mother just wanting her daughter to come back, and her daughter just, Linda Blair, becoming just grosser and grosser with every scene, and that's like the real slow suspense horror with all the like, you know, freak out stuff is like, and then the ending.
Oh yeah, and it just really affects the family too. And I
spoiler alerts if you haven't seen The Exorcist. Yeah.
Sorry, we spoiled it. But I try to look at the story more now and realize, okay, even though there's, you know, it's really scary and that's, you know, where my attention's really going, I try to look at the story and realize, okay, it's really about this mother, you know, needing to come to terms with things and realize, you know, in the end, all she needs to do is just try to help her daughter. Yeah. So I try to look at that instead of being super scared and being like,
but it takes a little bit. I don't know. I don't want to like toot my own horn, but it takes, you know, not an educated mind, but a seasoned moviegoer mind to be able to peek behind the curtain and understand what's, you know, behind the story. What are the themes? What's really being discussed here? Yeah, what's the overarching narrative really trying to discuss?
And I think in the past, especially, horror's got a bad rep almost because, you know, it's the slasher movie, you know, the same tropes happen all the time.
Definitely in the era that we focused on, the 80s and 90s, big time.
Definitely. But now I think there's a real resurgence, and I mean, you see it with reboots and everything, but even then they're, you know, a lot of people are going to these movies and really realizing, you know, okay, maybe it doesn't need to be, you know, the same slasher and then, you know, the girl running away or everything like that. There's much more to it. And I think it's kind of getting a lot more respect lately.
We're in a golden age of horror. Like, I don't know how it started, but horror has become such respectable genre that it's one of the few ones that is not mired by franchises and stuff. Like, you have the thrillers like The Purge and all of that nonsense, but it's the only one that I know besides, you know, maybe dramas and romances and things like that, where people will go to a new horror with a name that they haven't recognized, they've never seen before, with people that probably aren't that famous, and they'll still eat it up and it'll still become this huge thing. It's changed a little bit in this golden age where in the past horror was this like haven for no names to get started because they would mostly die or whatever. Now horror movies are becoming more like critically acclaimed and have major money behind it. So they're hiring bigger names and things like that, which is bringing more people to see the horror movies. So it's just this great cycle that I love.
Definitely. I agree. I mean, I think they make you think too, which is really great. It doesn't, you're not just going to sit there and be like, okay, eating my popcorn. All right, bye. You know, going to the grocery store now. You actually think about the movie afterwards, and it makes you change your perspective a little bit. If that does it for me, then I'm always like, yeah, I loved it.
Because I feel like the best dramas, they will make you think, but it's mostly about like maybe society or sociopolitical relationships, or maybe even, you know, your relationship with people. But horror is a genre that examines the kind of like human themes that others can't. Like, how far will a father go to protect his children, or how much is one willing to lose to have it all or whatever. And that's why I love horror, because it'll push the envelope in ways that no other films do. It breaks tropes. It pushes boundaries in ways that shock. And I absolutely love it. And so horror itself has kind of blossomed into its own subgenres. There's romance horrors and horror comedies and horror. There's even, just like
thriller horror.
Yeah, thriller horrors. And I love them all. But the one that we're talking about today is A Quiet Place, kind of reflecting the turmoil that our country is faced with today. The world is not the one that I once recognized, nor anyone does, and that's probably how the people in this film felt today. But before we get into that, we're going to take a quick break. When we come back, we're going to have more A Quiet Place, more Aileen O'Brien right here on The Gory Days.
The Gory Days.
Welcome back to The Gory Days. I'm here with Aileen O'Brien, fantastic writer, producer, director, and sometimes actor, voice actor, agent to the stars. And we were talking about the movie A Quiet Place that came out just last year, 2018, really just a few months ago. It was in April of 2018. The movie, if you haven't seen it, I'll just give a little quick tiny synopsis. The plot revolves around a family facing struggles in a post-apocalyptic world inhabited by blind monsters with an acute sense of hearing. Not the best log line. I feel like it could have a little more pathos in there about how, like, I don't know, a family... How would we punch that up? A father must keep his family silent to survive in a post-apocalyptic world. And it's like, ooh, why? Why does he have to be silent?
Some mystery to there. Yeah.
I'm not here to improve anybody's synopsis here. I took that off of the Wikipedia, but some quick background. A Quiet Place premiered at South by Southwest on Friday, March 9th of 2018, and then was released nationwide in the United States on Friday, April 6th by Paramount Pictures. It had a budget of $17 to $21 million. Do you want to guess what it grossed? In just nationwide, not worldwide?
Oh, man. I know it did very well. I'm going to be way wrong. I'm going to say 30 million. It's not even close to
No
that.
worries. I'm terrible at this. I'm sorry to put that on you.
Oh, no, it's okay.
That's a good guess, though. $340 million.
Oh, yep, I was very off.
It made $340.9 million off of $17 to $21 million.
Good for Paramount.
Really good.
Good job.
I mean, it's a really small cast. There's only 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, technically 6, 7 characters. John Krasinski, as we all know from The Office, and now Jack Ryan on Amazon. He's really trying to reinvent himself away from that goofy guy that we all know. Stars as the father, Lee Abbott. He's also the director of this movie and one of the screenwriters. He didn't actually write the original idea. He punched up the script written by a couple of other people from University of Iowa. They were writing it in their room. Yeah, they were roommates together, and they were writing it together 10 years ago. And very recently it got picked up, and John Krasinski punched it up, and they turned it into the movie that we know. Emily Blunt, who is John Krasinski's real-life wife, stars as Evelyn Abbott, his movie wife. First time they ever appeared together as husband and wife. That must have been really cool.
Oh, yeah. I bet that was really fun.
I wish I knew that when I watched it the first time.
Oh, you didn't know that?
I didn't know.
Oh, they're like my favorite celebrity couple.
Their chemistry is, it's real.
Yeah. If they ever break up, I
it's
will
going to be heartbreaking.
I will not believe in love anymore.
I don't think I could watch this movie again.
I know.
It'll break
I'd be
my
really
heart.
sad. I know. I agree.
It's like
real.
watching Mr. and Mrs. Smith now.
Yeah.
Millicent Simmons as Reagan Abbott, an actual deaf actress portraying the oldest daughter of Lee and Evelyn's characters, Reagan. And so that's part of the catalyst here is that she is already deaf, so the whole family speaks sign language before the events of the movie, which allows for them to be much, much quieter than you and I would be. I don't know, American Sign Language. Noah, is it Jupe or Jupe as Marcus Abbott? He's the son, the older son that makes it, obviously.
Yes.
And Cade Woodward as Bo, the younger son, who does not make it past the opening credits. Oh my God, that blew my freaking mind.
Sad.
The baby Abbott that never really gets a name is played by two different newborn babies, Ezekiel and Evangelina Cavoli. Something I learned recently is that a lot of the time when newborn babies are in movies, they're cast as preemies. They'll get premature baby. You probably know about this. Yeah.
I do.
Is that, well, then you tell us.
Yeah. So they, a lot of times the California labor laws for children are they have to work only a certain amount of hours, and then they need a lot of schooling, and especially for newborns, especially. So they usually look for preemies who look smaller, who can play a newborn that was just born,
and twins, so that they can split up the time.
Right, exactly. That's pretty much it.
I'm going to judge a little bit here. If I had twin preemies, I would be concerned about putting them in a box with around hot lights and all of that stuff.
Yeah.
I'm sure there's money to be made, but those kids,
they usually have like a nurse on or a medical professional on set too with them. So
they must have been so nervous when it was that scene, like time to put the baby in the box.
I know.
With the oxygen mask and everything.
Oh.
And like as far as I can tell, that sound is real. Like it really muffled that baby, so it wasn't like a movie effect or whatever. They really encased it for a little bit. Yeah.
Yikes.
And finally, Leon Russom as the man in the woods. That's his only credit. That's how he's titled. Technically, the wife must have been an actress, but she's not credited because she's dead.
Yeah.
Probably just an extra.
That man, I just love that old man.
Okay, let's do it one more time. This time, just throw it away. Just throw it away.
Yeah. All right. Scream.
So, A Quiet Place, if you're listening out there and you haven't seen it, turn your podcast, pause it right now, go watch it, because this was an amazing movie. I don't know what I was doing in April of 2018. I was probably waiting for Avengers Infinity War because I missed this, and everyone was telling me it was great, and I didn't go see it, and I'm kicking myself because the first time I saw this movie was 2 nights ago. And it's amazing.
It's really good.
And the world agrees. It won 17 awards and was nominated for 61 others. It won Best Sci-Fi Horror Movie from the Critics' Choice Awards. It won the AFI Movie of the Year. It was chosen by both the National Board of Review and the American... I already got AFI. But the top 10 films of 2018. All kinds of nominations, including a Golden Globe Award for Best Original Score. The music in this movie.
Yeah, it's very good.
God. Mm-hmm. I already mentioned Avengers Infinity War was a movie that was technically competing at the time. It didn't release the same week. It was 2 weeks later. Another one was Truth or Dare. As far as horror movies go, that was one that came out the following week, or weekend rather.
I forgot about that one.
Yeah.
I did not see it.
And I thought the marketing for this movie was kind of fun. I don't remember what the first teaser trailer was or where that came, but I remember the posters. I think it's just got that like big shot of Emily Blunt like right in front, and it says, "If they hear you, they hunt you."
Yes.
Yeah. And then there was the other one. I read this tagline on IMDb, but I don't remember seeing this anywhere on any posters or stuff. Rule number 1, don't make a sound. Rule number 2, never leave the path. Rule number 3, red means run.
Oh, I don't remember that.
That's not anywhere, and it kind of explains when she turns on the red lights at that one point, because it's so this movie is like show don't tell the movie. I freaking love it. They don't lay things out for you. They don't explain like, okay, there's no scene where they're like, and this is every day. First we get up and we turn on the lights and we make sure the sand is blah blah blah. No, they just show it.
Yeah.
They just show them surviving. Still getting a little bit ahead of myself. I was surprised that there's a sequel planned for this movie.
I know. I don't know.
I don't want this to turn into another franchise.
Yeah, I
don't want an origin story for where the monsters came from.
Yeah, I like... if they do a sequel, I think if they focus it on Emily Blunt's character, because she was amazing in this movie, and her character was really
especially
good.
At the end. She's
God.
she's a new person.
Yeah, the shotgun.
Yeah, with that
was
smile.
So badass. I would love to see that. I think that would be great, but I don't know if it's needed.
Unfortunately, from what I have heard, in November 2018, in an interview, John Krasinski said the sequel would not be a sequel to the first film, wouldn't focus on the same characters. It would be different people trying to survive the same monsters.
Oh, okay. Well, that could... Well, we did see the fire.
There are some nearby survivors. Yeah.
So I wonder if... if it was focused on one of those families, and then at the same time, it happens in real time. So, the fireworks. Oh, that's happening over, down yonder.
That would be cool.
I was
thinking, when I read that, I thought like, oh, what if it was in a different biome that instead of forest, it was in like a plain, like somewhere way harder to be quiet or something like that.
Like The Walking Dead, but Fear the Walking Dead.
Yeah.
Takes place in a different city. That would be interesting. That's pretty cool. I think I'll see it because it's so good.
I'll see it. Yeah.
Why not?
But see, that's what happens is... excuse me, if we keep doing this, if we keep supporting a good movie and then the sequels that come out, we're teaching the movie studios that, that's what people want. They want the same thing. If we get Hereditary 2 and 3 and 4, Zardon's Revenge, then they're never going to learn anything.
Yeah. I think it'd be cool to do anthology. I mean, well, not really anthology, but focus on that monster. But what different experiences from different people. That would be pretty cool. But that's more of something that they could do maybe on TV. I feel like maybe a good series. But
kind of like what they're doing with The Purge.
Right.
Yeah.
Yes.
Well, I guess it was a limited series, but it seems like it was a way to test the waters to see if this is what people want. Mm-hmm. That's interesting. No, The Purge is such a great example because it's just like it's this kind of cool idea that makes absolutely no sense, but we'll support it for a movie that gets stretched out into oblivion, and then a prequel about the first Purge and all this stuff that I don't know who wanted it.
I think originally when they were talking about doing The Purge, the first movie, I think it was first pitched as a TV show. I might be wrong. Don't correct me if I'm wrong, everyone. But I think originally...
They'll be yelling at you on Twitter.
Yeah, that's fine. They were going to do a TV show. Okay. But then they're like, no, let's do a series.
Let's get Ethan Hawke in this. Yeah,
but I could be wrong. I don't know.
No worries, yeah.
I thought I read that somewhere.
So let's see. What else did I have here? Yeah, all this stuff can kind of wait until after, I guess, beforehand. So after years of hard work, Scott Beck and Brian Woods, both natives of Bettendorf, Iowa, caught their biggest break yet when they sold a screenplay to Paramount Pictures for a film called A Quiet Place. This is from an interview written back in 2009 I guess 2010 when they were talking.
Little do they know.
Yeah, so Scott Beck said in that interview, that had been a long time coming. A Quiet Place was an idea that we came up with, and while we were students at Iowa, it was like 10 or 11 years ago that Brian and I were sitting outside of our apartment on South Johnson Street talking about this idea. We kind of put it in a drawer and didn't really crack it open until a year and a half ago. And that's how it happens. If you're sitting on a screenplay right now that you think is worth something and no one is buying it right now, don't burn it. Don't shred it. Don't throw it away. Hold on to it. In a couple of years or 5 years or 10 years, who knows what the world is going to be ready for, and they might want your screenplay at the drop of a hat.
Yeah, as seen here.
Mm-hmm, exactly. And now the two of these guys are working, they're directing now another feature film that, I don't remember what it's called. I didn't care enough to do that research. And the last thing I'll talk about before we get into the nitty-gritty is the monsters. Production designer Jeffrey Beecroft headed the creature design, and special effects supervisor Scott Farrar created the creatures, who is also known for the creatures in Cocoon, special effects in Backdraft, and Transformers most recently in 2007.
Last night when I was rewatching, I saw that it was produced by Michael Bay.
Yes.
So that's funny.
That's probably how it happened. He went, I know someone who can help you out.
Yeah.
Because the monsters in the design... one other thing I thought was interesting about the monsters is that John Krasinski did a lot of the motion cap work whenever the monsters were like interacting on set, when they weren't, just like rushing through a scene or something. Yeah.
That's pretty cool.
Because, John Krasinski is an actor. He's apparently a director. He's also a physical body actor, which I think is a totally different skill set. I'm impressed that he's that talented too.
Especially with a monster that doesn't exist in real life that we know of. You have to make all these movements and all these, choices. That's a lot of work. So
I don't know. I take it for granted. I always think I can do that, but then I see it. I don't know. Like Doug Jones is a person that I particularly admire. He was the creature guy who was in Pan's Labyrinth as the fawn, and also the guy who eats the fairies with his hands. He was also the fish man in the water,
Shape of Water.
The Shape of Water. Yeah, which was amazing. But I've always admired him and his body work and how he's able to move around and things like that. Or like the actor in Mama who played Mama with her big elongated limbs and things like that. Very creepy, very cool.
Was it just me, or sorry to interrupt, or did the monster remind you of the Demogorgon from Stranger Things?
In this one?
Yeah.
Oh, I'm not that familiar with Stranger Things.
Okay.
Yeah, and it's a shame because it's one of the reason I'm not is because it's tailor-made for me, and so I resent it. It's got it's just got everything that's don't you love this? It's like it. It's like the 80s. It's like all these things you love, and I was born in the 90s, but I'm an old soul, so I like 80s things. But
it's one of the things you're like, I know I'll like it, so I'll get to it eventually.
Maybe. Yeah. I don't know. It's the only. I don't feel a need to go back in time unless it's to educate myself. I most recently watched Nosferatu, silent film. There's a scene in there where there's a hyena. And it's supposed to be an exotic, weird animal. What is that creature? Because people hadn't seen a hyena at the time. And it's just
It's a hyena.
Yeah, but like that is kind of like the movie monster of today. It's like people saw that and they're like, whoa, what is that? And they didn't have CGI and they didn't have, sometimes they would just like dress a dog up weird and people would go, what is that? Now we have millions of dollars of industrial light and magic being applied to John Krasinski's body to create the same effect for audiences.
Right.
Yeah, it all has a place. A Quiet Place. John Krasinski and his family of 4 at the beginning of the movie are at the supermarket, and they're scavengers. It starts out on day 89. I don't know if that's 3 months into the event or 3 months from an arbitrary date when they lost.
Right. That's what I was like, day 89 since like... I have some, well, I'm sure we'll get into some theories, but like, since when?
Yeah.
What was the first
like
day?
From their first appearance, and it took 90 days for them to basically wipe out everybody?
Yeah.
Because so I don't want to like go beat by beat through the movie. Let's start here. Let's deconstruct the monsters. Yes. They are humanoid. They're 4-limbed things. They kind of walk on all forms, but they're definitely humanoid. That hunt sound. They've either evolved beyond the need for eyes or have never had eyes, and they hear through these like super sensitive ears. And we get some really cool moments where we can see just how sensitive their hearing is. Yeah, there's some great moments where like they open up their ears and they're hearing something and you're like, what is that? And then they cut to what they're hearing and it's like, oh, TV static or something or a heartbeat or something like that. Yeah. So what are they?
I wonder almost if they're aliens.
There is one hint at that. So in Abbott, so the family is Abbott. I'm going to try to, I hate doing this. I do this on the show all the time. I have to either decide if I'm going to say the actors' names or the characters' names. I can't keep switching back and forth.
I kept writing in my notes, John or Jim.
So let's stick with the actors' names.
Okay, Abbott.
So
Lee.
Actors' names. John Krasinski.
Sorry. Okay, John Krasinski. Sorry.
So John Krasinski's family, consisting of Emily Blunt, Millicent Simmons, Noah Jupe, and the baby. Baby's not there at the beginning. They're surviving among these monsters that chase them on sound, so they have to be completely silent all the time. And the way that we're shown this is they're walking around on sand in a supermarket, and they have to walk from... It all takes place in upstate New York, where you're from. Did you recognize anything?
I didn't recognize it. The scene looked familiar. I was like, oh, yep, this is what
I've never been.
Town.
It's foresty and like...
Yeah, it's... there are certain towns that are like that where when they go to the pharmacy, small town, not much going on.
But there's also farmland?
Yeah, very rural, but also beautiful. I mean, it takes place during the fall, and the foliage during
Does
the
it
fall
snow?
is nice.
That was something I wondered.
Snow.
Like, how do they survive in the snow? I wondered.
That's what I was thinking. I was like, man, the snow.
Like barefoot. What do they do?
Yeah,
snow makes noise.
It's going to be terrible in the winter for them.
Yeah.
When they have to shovel.
We skip a winter because we start in day 89 and then we skip to day 472. So we get all the way back to another fall, kind of.
They must have hibernated or something.
I guess they were probably in that basement. Maybe snow. Maybe it's actually safest in the winter because maybe that snow dampens sound.
Right.
But we find out that the monsters are attracted to sound by the fact that he keeps telling them to shush. They keep using sign language. This whole opening scene, we're still like, why are they? I mean, I already know why because of all the trailers and talking with people, but I like to put myself in that, like, I wonder why they're doing this. Like, I try to picture John Krasinski reading the script, not knowing anything and going like, oh, why? Why are they being so quiet? Because that's what I'm trying to wonder. So they leave the pharmacy, but Noah, the little, I want to...
Oh, I think it's Bo, the character, but I don't know the actor's name.
Oh, yeah. I'm sorry, Cade. Yeah, Cade. Okay. Bo. Maybe we should just say the actors. I mean, the characters. I'm going to get this. Yeah. Okay. So, Bo, the son. Let's just get to the actors. So, Lee, Evelyn, Reagan, the deaf daughter, Marcus, the older son, and Bo, the younger son. Bo took a toy with him, a rocket ship that makes a lot of noise. And when that thing goes off...
Goodbye.
Lee goes running for him, and it's too late. Those monsters are fast. They are really fast. You don't get a good look at what comes, but this is the first thing that like starts off the movie on an amazing note. Children are not safe.
No.
That's a big, like, that's supposed to be a thing in movies, is like, well, if a kid's there, he'll probably be okay. If a giant thing is falling and a kid's there, someone's going to swoop in and push him out of the way or something. No.
Nope.
No, the dad doesn't get there in time. And I feel like they set that up to be like, oh,
Yeah.
no, he's going to, yeah. But the way Emily Blunt, like, breaks down immediately once that thing goes off, so good. And then how she blames herself later, how she's still grieving. That's such a great thing. It really plays on some of the themes of this. So then, like I said, we skip all the way straight to day 472, which mathematically is about 1 year and 3 months from day 0 or whatever.
Yeah.
And so during this, we get kind of a montage of what their living situation is like in this house. And at some point we see the basement where where Lee is working, and there are whiteboards and newspaper clippings and all of the stuff that compiles everything they know about the monsters. And it's show don't tell. We don't need a conversation about what they've learned in things. It's just, what can you pick out from all of this? It really doesn't matter, because that's not what the movie's about. It's not about the president banding together and figuring out how to stop these things once and for all. It's about a small family trying to survive when they're not the top of the food chain.
And I think it's easy to get those clues is they, have those missing posters and those newspaper clippings that say, it's sound. That's
Instantly.
how you're like, oh, okay.
Gets it right away.
Yeah.
Especially with a movie that only has 25 lines of dialogue. The first of which doesn't come in until about an hour into the movie, which is crazy. So yeah, day 472, we see those collages and stuff, and that's where we get our clue that they are in fact aliens. There's a thing. One of the newspaper clippings says something akin to multiple landing sites as the headline. So they are aliens. Once again, not really necessary for the story, but for the sake of deconstructing the movie, I like to figure that out. So now that we know that they're aliens, did they just come to invade us? If they're aliens, they must be smart enough to come multi-billions of light years here, but just to be animalistic and slaughter us?
I don't know. I find it interesting. I was listening.
It's rhetorical questions.
Yeah. I was reading a CNN article the other day where they found sounds in our universe far away, and I was like, oh man, that somewhat this is a stretch, of course.
I love stuff like that. Really?
I thought that was pretty interesting. Yeah, they found
what kind of sounds?
Something with like radio sounds, just activity, I guess, going on.
That wasn't rocks crashing into other things.
Yeah, it was like a spooky thing. Like, oh, why is there noises going on in the universe? I didn't really read the full article, but I think that there might not be like human life out there, but there's some sort of life. It might not be. You can get into a whole discussion.
No. I personally think it's statistically impossible, just mathematically impossible for us to be the only intelligent life in the entire universe. We'll probably never, ever see them in the entire of time, but I believe that they're out there. But there's no point in believing that. But
and even if, there'll be plants. Like, they found, plants on Jupiter.
They found water. It was raining on Io or something, right?
So, there's got to be some sort of life. It might not be, like, us or anything, but there's something going on, I bet.
Yeah
And
I can't wait till we can live there. That'd be pretty cool.
Yeah.
I'd love those movies too, like living off planet and stuff, like The Martian. Freaking love The Martian.
The potatoes.
How grounded it is. Yeah. So getting off track here. So day 472, they are pregnant. The baby died, and it's been a year, so they probably had some time to grieve and then, get comfortable again. And so Emily Blunt is pregnant.
Yeah.
I remember seeing that, and all I thought was, oh, good for her. And it wasn't until she was checking her heart rate and using the stethoscope to listen to the heartbeat that it dawned on me, and I literally gasped sitting there. I was like, oh, babies make noise.
Yeah.
Oh, no. What are they going to do? And then I put it together because they're making the basement soundproof. I was so stupid when they were putting they were putting the paper mache and stuff. I was like, what are they doing? I don't know. Yeah, and I didn't put it together that that's the baby zone.
Yeah.
That's where the baby will be safe. So the way that they survive, they have a huge farm. They have lots of corn, a silo full of corn, but they eat fish and veggies. I get that fish is, you need a meat. You can't.
You need protein.
I guess you do, but they're a vegetarian. Yeah, but vegetarians even need protein. They have to eat beans and stuff like that, which I imagine they didn't have. But what I thought was interesting talking with somebody was that the aliens most likely killed all of the animals already. Like those raccoons and stuff were what's left, little scavengers. But as soon as they got here, birds, dogs, like anything that was making noise, they probably slaughtered. So it makes sense that fish is the only kind of animal that they would have left.
And there's that scene where they go in the river and Lee.
Yeah, we're
he's
getting
like, it's okay if the sound of the river's so loud, so little sounds are okay. So that's probably how the fish are safe.
Exactly. Yeah. That they're which gets us to a pretty great plot hole of the movie that I'm sure everyone has. We talked about at this point, but about halfway through the movie, when we get our first spoken line of dialogue, is when Lee takes his son, Marcus, on a hunting trip. He really doesn't want to go. He doesn't want to go so much that he would rather do homework with his mom.
Stressed. That poor kid was so
He's
stressed.
so scared, and the parents are like, they don't take him seriously.
Yeah.
He's got these looks. He's got these looks of like abject anxiety on his face, and they're just like, it's okay. He'll take care of you.
He was so stressed.
And like his dad Lee takes the fish out of the water and it all gets away, and he like is ready to bolt.
Yeah, he's
and
like,
Lee, his dad, has to grab him. He's like, it's okay, it's okay. And this is where he explains that when there's a louder natural sound nearby, you don't have to be as quiet. And he demonstrates this by taking him to a waterfall. I don't know how close this is to them. It seems like it takes them the rest of the day to walk back because they don't get back until it's nighttime. But the waterfall is this massive thing that's making so much noise that he goes, woo! He makes a noise. I was sitting there and I was like, that's too loud still.
Yeah.
That doesn't sound like a waterfall. Don't make that noise.
You can hear it with the with the waterfall.
But that's not the plot hole. The plot hole is, why don't they live next to the waterfall?
I was like, maybe the waterfall would be a good idea.
Or, you could even make an argument that you can't live next to the waterfall. It's just, for whatever reason, it's not. Just have the baby birthing place next to the waterfall.
I didn't even think of that.
Temporary.
That would have been a great idea.
So much safer than a flooding basement.
Oh, man.
Oh, my God. Poor Emily Blunt. You can't leave her alone for a second.
The nail. Oh my God!
So let's get into it. One of the biggest. It's so funny. Like the smaller the thing, the bigger the reaction. Like that. One of the biggest moments for me, and I'm sure for just the movie, is Evelyn is like ready to go. She is 9 months pregnant. It is delivery date, and she's doing laundry. She is mother of the year because that morning her son and husband went out hunting. Her daughter ran away on a temper tantrum, so she is by herself doing laundry. Her laundry bag catches on a nail on the stairs, and she pulls and it's loose. No problems, except now that nail's sticking straight up. And man, the way they show it,
foreshadowing.
yeah, so subtle. But it's not supposed to be subtle. It's supposed to be Chekhov's nail, because when that happened, I thought it was going to be someone else who falls for it, not Evelyn.
I know.
She comes running down the stairs because, holy shit, there's a monster in the house.
Yeah.
That got another, I wrote gasp on here because it was a real,
Yeah.
Yeah, because she goes into labor before that. She is downstairs and she's like, ooh, I'm in labor. I got to get upstairs. And she sees the thing at the top of the stairs.
She's stuck.
It's in the house. So she's stuck. So she goes back down the stairs and she steps on the nail.
Oh my God.
It goes straight through her foot, and she holds her mouth and she doesn't scream.
I know.
And she's experiencing labor and a nail in her foot. But she is the strongest freaking woman in cinematic history, because she lifts her foot right back up and goes back to the basement, and you think, okay, she's made it. She's safe down here. Nope! The thing comes down the stairs. Oh my God. What were you thinking the first time you saw that?
When I was in the theater, I literally cringed because I was like,
I was so tense.
No.
I was like all coiled up and everything.
I mean, usually I throughout this whole movie, I don't think I needed to cover my eyes. At that point, I was like, no, I can't watch it. Because I've never stepped on a nail, but I know people that have. And you can just feel that feeling of when you step on something a little bit hard or something like that. And you're like, oh, no. So I'm imagining that 4 times. It was just, I had to
Yeah, it's nuts.
cover my eyes.
We're not going to pause for this leaf blower. We're just going to barrel on through. But hey, there's a leaf blower outside. Thanks for that. This episode is brought to you by leaf blowers. Man, yeah, I was so tense. There were 2 moments where I was just coiled up in every possible way. The moment where she steps on that nail, and the one where the basement is flooding and the baby is stirring, and oh my God,
and then the monster lurking.
And it goes underwater all of a sudden, which is crazy.
Oh my God.
This was
she did a great job in this movie.
Emily Blunt carries this whole scene because she
Yeah.
gets from the downstairs, going through massive labor pains and the nail in her foot and the dirty floor and everything. She's still able to think of a plan to turn the egg timer on the other side of the room. It goes off, so that's distracted, and she just kind of walks out of the basement.
You see her face, she's just like, gotta go.
She's so good, and she makes it all the way upstairs to the bathtub where she starts bleeding. And so some background on the situation there. I thought it was a plot hole because it was like, she has the baby. How did it stay quiet? Babies were screaming as soon as they're born. Apparently, the fact that she was bleeding so much indicated that there was a problem with the pregnancy. There's a number of things that can happen, but massive bright red blood like that before the baby comes is an indication that something wrong, that either the mother or the baby or both is losing a lot of blood. And so the baby was most likely born with blood loss and was unconscious until they brought it downstairs.
Wow.
And so that it also explains how she was like kind of delirious when
Right.
I feel like she would be
Yeah.
anyway. You just had a baby.
And you just got your foot,
And you were almost killed. The monster was
Exactly.
like right
Fight or
there.
flight.
And Emily Blunt scream when she's holding onto it as long as she can, and you see the tense because she turned on the red lights. Lee and Marcus are running home to turn on the fireworks to distract them. Yeah. So once again, here's Marcus full of anxiety, going like, I can't do this.
Yeah.
And Lee trying to explain, you have to. Your mother needs you right now. And so he runs all the way out there, and he lights the fireworks, and they go off. And man, they're low. For a second, I thought they were gonna like set something on fire because it was like it looked like a hazard, but and it works. The monsters are distracted. They chase after Marcus. Lee is able to get in and bring his wife down to the basement. So this is where it all connected. They were making the basement soundproof so that they could have the baby down there. And the box and oxygen tank that they had was so they could have the baby in there and have it be soundproof. And it all makes sense. So this is where we get this awesome moment. There's a few moments where Lee and Evelyn really connect on screen, and they don't even they can't really talk to each other in that first one where he's working in the lab. I was working in the lab late one night. He's downstairs and he's trying to fix Reagan's hearing aid to make it better, or it's not working. That's it. It's broken and it can only hear like muffled or something like that. And so another thing that I read is it's not actually a hearing aid, it's a cochlear implant, which is something a little bit different. Instead of amplifying the sound because she's totally deaf, the actress is as well, it's an implant that takes vibrations from the air and sound and from the world and converts that into sound in your brain so that you're able to hear an illusion of what it is.
I could, because when she had that on, I could hear her heartbeat. I think really muffled though. So
and how just kind of magnets when she takes it off. I didn't realize. I've never known anybody with a cochlear implant, at least not intimately enough to know the ins and outs of how it works. I guess I did actually. When I went at my middle school, there was a deaf program, and a lot of them must have had various things like that. Yeah, but when they're down there, they just dance a little bit and they hug and they hold and they just show that they are really connected despite losing one of them. Yeah. But it's the second one when they're down in the basement that Emily Blunt really lays it on. And I forget the exact. It's if we can't protect them, what are we?
Right.
It's just something like that. It's like we're their parents, and that just brings the whole movie focused right down to it's about survival. But it's more about protecting your children. It's not they couldn't care less if they made it. They would instantly choose to sacrifice themselves in a heartbeat if it meant that their children would live. Foreshadowing. Yeah. So this is just it almost gets comedic at some points with how bad everything gets and how bad everything just stays because Lee leaves his wife down there with the newborn baby, and I remember this big sigh of relief, she just had a baby. She deserves to relax. She's going to take a nap. It's okay. And then when she wakes up, the basement is flooded.
She never gets a break.
And not only is the basement flooded, a monster is there.
She never gets a break. Poor.
Yeah. And I couldn't help but just oh my God, this is ridiculous. But that's gone as soon as the baby is stirring again, because this was another moment where I was completely anxious. because it disappears under the water.
Right.
So it's one thing to be quiet, but she could bump into it while she's holding the baby, and she has to walk behind the water like that's pouring down. And I thought, oh, that's going to make the baby cry too. She's going to have to like kind of like muffle it. And that's a really terrifying thing. Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. So like, I am not a father. I don't have kids, and I don't plan on having kids anytime soon. And still, I can put myself there on like, I can't really put myself on the baby side, but I can put myself in Emily Blunt's situation and just be like, I can imagine what it would be like. Like, I don't know if it was my parents or if it was my sister or something. There's some thing either in your life or a hypothetical that you can create for your life that puts you into this scenario and makes it not just terrifying, but also relatable.
Yeah.
Even if it's a monster.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Also when
It's an adult fear.
Yeah. I was thinking about this when I was watching the movie of how they've been surviving this whole time. I like wrote a list.
Oh, please.
And
I love lists.
it's a pretty short list, but I wrote nurse ? So I wondered if Emily's character was a nurse because she had all that equipment.
Yeah.
And
she knew how to use it.
She knew how to use it. She didn't seem too phased. I mean, by the labor, she was like, oh no, it's happening. But she kind of went through it pretty, I guess, as calmly as you kind of can, especially with all the monsters.
She did have 3 kids before this,
Yeah.
so she's kind of like, at this point, she knows like kind of what to expect,
Right.
I bet. But that is interesting because no matter how many kids you have, I feel like you still wouldn't have a stethoscope or have like maybe that was something they thought was really important to get when they're going out back to the town. But I think that's interesting. It's also interesting that she's an educator. And she like has like
True.
workbooks and lesson plans and knows like Shakespearean sonnets written on the back iambic pentameter.
And also with John's character, I was wondering, I also put like technician, like where
Or
did
engineer,
yeah, like how did he get all this equipment? Did he like work at Radio Shack when it was around? Or
That's another
something
great
like
thing that they don't tell us, but it's great to infer. And
yeah, and I mean that's maybe if those things are true, we'll never know. But that might be one of the reasons why they've survived for so long, especially with knowing sign language already. They can, they have kind of a
huge advantage.
Yeah, advantage to communicating and not having to whisper all the time, because even whispering, they'll hear it. So
yeah, that's just crazy. Is like it's kind of hard to balance like. Because they make a lot of just like incidental noises, but even a whisper they can't do. So it's kind of like, well, wouldn't they have heard that? But it's fine. Yeah, because they're not surrounding them. They're probably like a few half-mile away or something like that. Yeah,
right.
Because they're fast though. They're close enough to run back.
They are, especially the old man. That when you were talking about how it was almost things were laughable. Two things that were really laughable for me. The one was anytime they actually talked, it sounded weird. Almost.
I was.
And I laughed because I was like, their voice sounds weird.
Yeah. I was not prepared. I was like, oh, they're gonna talk now.
Yeah, so it was funny because I was like, oh, I haven't heard someone speak in a while, and it just doesn't sound like their voice. So it was like almost funny to me.
Yeah.
And then also, I just couldn't help but laugh at the old man when he screams.
I didn't know what he was gonna do.
Yeah, I was wondering, why is he just gonna scream? And then I kind of thought about it. I was like, well, he's probably like, my wife's gone. It's time for me to go. And
But he puckers his face, and he like does a big inhale, and then the scream itself is kind of disappointing when all of that lead up.
Yeah, I was wondering because they showed that abandoned house. I was wondering like, oh, who's in there? And then he shows up and he's just like. I don't know why. I just thought it was really funny.
I was relieved that there was less going on there. I was worried. There was something about that scene that I was like, oh, great. We're going to spend a bunch of time with this guy now. He's going to be some like new addition or whatever. But no.
He knows the secrets to the monster. He has the prophecy.
Yeah. So let's skip a little bit to Reagan and Marcus are separated. They are not separated. They're together. They're separated from the parents. Evelyn asks Lee, she makes him promise him that they will be safe, that he will go out and protect them. That's when he leaves and the basement gets flooded. While he's out, Reagan and Marcus have climbed to the top of the corn silo. Very smart. I don't know how they got up there on like a ladder or something, but really smart. They light a fire. It doesn't last long enough, but unfortunately they fall in. Marcus falls into the silo. Another horrifying scare for me because that happens. Farmers have died that way, is drowning in grain when you fall in.
And you don't think, death by corn kernels.
You think something about it thinks like, oh, well, even if I was completely submerged, there'd still be like air, but no.
Yeah, no.
And if you're not careful, soon you're inhaling solids, and then you're dead. Yeah. And so when Reagan goes under, oh man, that was scary.
Yeah, those kids were really resourceful in this movie.
That door is questionably light. First it's really heavy, then it's really light that they're able to hide under it. I was like, what? Mm-hmm. Yeah. And the monster jumps down there, and that's where we get, I think for the second time, that Reagan has a one-up on these. Mm-hmm. There was a moment before where they almost snuck up on her, which is great, because she's deaf, and we see the thing behind her, but there's no sound. The sound is completely cut out. We're hearing what she's hearing, which is feedback. For some reason, when they're nearby, they elicit some kind of like electrical disturbance. The lights flicker, her cochlear implant gives back feedback that hurts them.
It hurts her too because we can see her. She's in pain.
It's really uncomfortable. It's like this shrill thing. What I thought was fascinating is it's not annoying for us, the viewer. Yeah. That sound is usually a really annoying thing, but they found a way to mix the sound that it wasn't annoying to listen to from an audience perspective. Yeah, because it basically it doesn't kill them, but it capacitates them and makes them run away. Mm-hmm. Huge, because that's what gets the monster that's in the corn silo with them to break out through those giant walls and make it out of there. Same monster that can't break through the car's thin tin roof, but we won't get into that. Lee eventually makes it to his kids, but they're trying to get back to the house where Evelyn and the baby are. She's watching them on security cams while the monster has cornered them in a different part of the farm. The kids are in a truck that we saw earlier. We saw Marcus play driving in, which I thought was fun. Like, they're kids. They have almost nothing. I'm glad he's still finding something fun to do. Yeah. So the car comes back in that way. Lee is outside the car watching the monster tear apart the car and almost get inside. This is probably one of the best shots we get of the monster full-bodied. We see how really big it is. Mm-hmm. It's as big as the truck, pretty much.
And we see how destructive it is, too, because he, I just gave the name of the monster, he. Sorry.
Gender-neutral 2019. Non-binary aliens.
The monster, hits John Krasinski's character, and he goes flying, and
I thought he was dead.
And you see him, he's bleeding out, and you're like, whoa, he really took some damage to that. So you actually see how, I don't know, that was for me, that was like, whoa, they're really destructive.
And it seems like they don't eat people. They just kill them and just leave them where they are. The old lady was gutted and just there. Yeah.
Yeah. But, this part.
Go for it.
When he signed. So basically,
This is the big moment.
Oh, man. He knows the only way that the kids are going to be okay is if he, distracts the monster while they escape. And pretty much before he does that, he signs, I love you. I have always loved you. And I know it's a tearjerker.
Because what's happened is Reagan blames herself for Beau's death at the beginning of the movie. The toy, the rocket ship that Beau had when he died, Reagan gave him. He wasn't supposed to have it, and Reagan let him have it. And the batteries aside, she blames herself for it. And in a discussion between Lee and his son Marcus thinks that Lee kind of blames her too, and he's worried that this lack of communication quite literally is resulting in suffering on both of their parts. And so the emotional story, the catalyst for this whole movie, comes to a head, like all good movies do, at the same time as the plot's climax, when Lee signs to his daughter the admission, the reveal that I've always loved you. And all those months and year and a half that you thought I didn't love you because of that horrible thing, I've always loved you. And with this last act of screaming, I'm going to prove that. Yeah. And he screams and the monster attacks him, and the kids are able to get away by releasing the parking brake and rolling down the hill. And movie's not over yet. Nope. I thought that was like, oh, okay, that's the big moment. But oh boy, they get down into the basement and a monster follows them there. Yeah. And it's in the basement and they're looking right at it. And it's like, it's trying to hear, and it hears a TV and it smacks that. And in that moment, it's like, it's going to find them eventually. Like, it's going to hear their breathing or their heartbeat or something. That's when Reagan remembers the ear thing, and she kind of also noticed there's a lot going on in that one moment. She goes down there, she sees all of the work that her dad has been doing to improve.
She was never allowed down there either, yeah.
And thought that was weird. Like, why? Why not let her see that work? There's nothing bad down there. It was just he wanted to keep the hard work he was doing and I guess failing at. Maybe that was it. Is like he internalized that. I couldn't help her. So he was kind of like an electrical engineer of some kind, because those are like micro wires and things.
You gotta know how to do that. You have to figure that out.
So somehow she figures out that she can turn it up and amplify it. So she puts it like into a microphone, and it basically weakens the monster to a point that its head is exposed. They're armored, and up until now, it's been this place. Hey, welcome back. Our this episode today is brought to you by Leaf Blowers. They finally find a weakness from their armor underneath their skin when the head is exposed. Emily Blunt takes the shotgun that Lee Abbott loaded recently and blows its head off. And it's kind of squirming, and you're worried for a little bit if it's really dead, but no, it is. And they found a way to kill him.
And then they hear more. They're like, oh, we know what to do
I don't know how many more are coming, but probably a ton from that gunshot. But they're ready.
They're like, we know what to do.
Oh, man, that's so badass, the way they set that up. It gives me chills talking about it now.
Yeah.
And that's A Quiet Place.
Yeah. I kind of wanted to point out, I read somewhere about when John Krasinski signs, I have always loved you. I remember reading that, I guess, when Millicent was reading the script, she suggested to John, you should change it to I have always loved you instead of I love you always or something. And I guess when John heard that idea, he started crying or something.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, that's such, I think that it proves it even further that he, never blamed her for it. He always has loved her. There was this, divide between them always, but he's always loved. So I thought that was really cool.
I love hearing that because it shows a direct connection that the actor had to this story, and that what you're seeing on screen is not like, oh, okay, hey, when am I done here? Am I going, I'm going to a veggie grill after this. It's no, he is in it, and he knows this story. In fact, the reason he loved this script so much was that Emily Blunt and he had just recently had a baby when the script fell into his lap, and he was already feeling that, am I a good enough father now? Imagine in this scenario. And so that's why he carries it so well. Millicent, in fact, was really instrumental in making the character what we see in the movie, in the script. From what I understand, she was much more like just... When she's having the argument with her father, she was not defiant in the script. She bends to him and she's afraid of him. It was Millicent's idea that no, she should be defiant and in her sign language should be arguing, stop, just stop, and all of that stuff. That's so effective. And that was this actress's input.
Yeah.
And that's why he cast her, is because he wanted an actual deaf actress to give him that kind of input on set and confirm, like, is this what you would do? Is this what a family would do? Is this how they would communicate?
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's a sign of a good director, is when
Absolutely.
you can, connect with your actor and see them, as a human also within the character. And that's, a way you can see the characters, not judging the character, is by understanding, okay, this is what they're going through. So I think that's really cool.
The other side of that coin is like, how do you direct your wife?
I know.
That must be so difficult. Like, I know you're talented. I know we're equals here.
Yeah.
And can you do that again with a little...
You can do it better. You can do this.
That must be so hard. I always think Ben Stiller directed and starred in Meet the Parents, and I think, how do you do that? How do you direct and star in something? Louis C.K. starred and directed in Louis, and I always wondered how they did that, especially from this, like the bathroom scene. From what I read, that was done in one take. That Emily Blunt nailed it the first and only time. And then as soon as John said cut, she dropped character immediately and said, "What's for lunch, guys?" Just to mess with everybody.
Nice.
So that's the story. In the basement scene towards the... sorry, I already read that. So there are real family photos of John Krasinski and Emily Blunt with their real children used in the film to show the other kids as like younger versions of them, which I thought was cool. The original screenplay only had one line of dialogue before it was broken up into the 25 lines that we have now. I wonder what the one was. Would have been cool to know.
Run or something.
Yeah,
like
maybe,
that.
or maybe, maybe I've always loved you. Well, no, she need to be signed to that.
Yeah.
I'm not sure. I had some other things here I didn't write down. Just something that, like, we were talking about diegetic sounds earlier. This movie was very unique in that we were talking about Foley artists and how people would have to recreate them. This movie, they tried as hard as possible to get all of the sounds on set as they were. Like the Monopoly stuff, the dice in particular would be a really impossible, difficult thing to pick up. The whole crew had to be absolutely silent so that they could get things like that, so that it could be as diegetic, as real as possible. So that was pretty cool.
I always loved something I wrote down was the sound whenever like they heard the monster in the distance and they're like everybody quiet. It was like this like
the sound.
chromatic scale like sound.
Yeah, that's it. The music in this movie is amazing.
Yeah, it was. I always laugh. Well, watching it the second time, I'm like, oh, there's that sound again. You know it's not good.
There's, I think it's the last time when it finally comes down the stairs to the like control room where they are that sound cue happens, and I'm so familiar with it at this point, and it sounds exactly the same. That it's like, oh, it's the bad guy. Yeah, exactly, like you're saying. So finally, I want to get into kind of the themes that we talked about earlier, specifically the idea of safety and parenthood, and that how far are you willing to go to protect your children, and how much are you willing to sacrifice to make sure that you make a life that's better for the people before you. That's a universal thing, no matter what country. It pervades language, it pervades hearing loss. Everyone under the sun can relate to that idea, and I think that's one of the strongest themes in the movie.
Yeah, and I think I read an interview that John said he doesn't like horror movies, and he doesn't like them, and you wouldn't think, John Krasinski's directing a movie, and it's a horror movie, a monster. Didn't. Yeah, and he said the reason why I really like this movie is just because the core value, like the core of the movie is just about family, and he said that I could see myself, being that, in that character's position. So, like you said, yeah, it's a universal.
Well, I guess that's being kind of presumptive. Do you identify with those themes? I don't mean to say that every normal person in the world should get that. Is this something that you react to, or? Yeah,
I think even not necessarily family, because, everybody's family dynamic's different, but, there's probably someone out there that, you're really close to that you'll do anything for. It's not necessarily, it has to be a mom or a dad or a child or anything like that. It might be, a best friend that, you want to make sure that they're okay, and you value their happiness over your own in a way. So I think that caring for others and people that you really care about, I think that relates to a lot of people. So
I think you're right. I think it's emblematic of like something that we want to think of is in us, and it kind of represents the best idealized version of yourself, is that if I was in this situation, I would also act selflessly and help the person I love to get by, even if it meant that I had to sacrifice myself. So yeah, I think it kind of, holds a character up like that as somebody that we can look to for our morals and for, a way to lead our lives, which isn't to say that the moral of the story is to be self-sacrificing to your children. Right. There's certainly a balance when it comes to real life, when not in apocalyptic scenarios. But it's still, I think a nice grounded thing. And it leads straight into the ingenuity that I feel like is kind of another theme of this movie, is being proactive and self-reliant and being able to either survive, or if you can't survive on your own, make something that can help you survive, or if you can't make something, find something. Finding the drive in yourself to create a solution to survive. Yeah.
And I think
I guess that's more of a statement.
No, yeah, I agree.
What do you think?
I mean, I think when in a philosophical sense, we don't really know what we're capable of until we reach a point where we need to, fight or flight, sense. So I think, in that sense, it's not super relatable because we don't know, like...
A lot of us aren't pushed to that point.
Yeah, but, if we were in the situation, you might say, hey, I do that too. I throw that timer and I try to distract and then go, So, I think that you can say, oh, okay, I'd do that if I were in that situation. But, yeah, I mean, it's tricky because you're like, well, I don't know if we'll ever have, if I'll ever be running away from a kind of monster like that. But you think, oh, if I was in this situation, that would be a good idea. And I know I would probably do the same thing.
Yeah. And it's like, I don't know, from a screenwriting standpoint, there's not a ton of other options for this character to do. What's he going to do? Take his wife or is he just going to run? Just abandon his whole family and run? No, it's heavily established, like in the first scene, that he loves his family more than anything, and he'll make sure that they're safe. Yeah. And Emily Blunt really puts it on him too, that it's not just me and you, it's them.
Right. something I did want to bring up to you. When I saw this movie, I talked to a lot of people about it, and either half of the people really loved it like me, and then the other half didn't like it.
Was this a divisive film?
And the reason why they didn't like it was because they were mad that they got pregnant again. And they were like, well, they knew that if they did that, then, they were going to have problems, and why would you bring a kid into the world and stuff like that. So
it is pro-life.
Yeah, so I was like, oh, wow, like, oh man, I was surprised because I just thought it was just a great movie. I didn't really think of that. So when people were like, I was so mad, they knew if they had a kid that they were going to have problems. So I thought that was interesting. I was like, wow, I guess, yeah, but also, we need the story,
That is interesting.
To the story. So I thought it interesting how half, the discussion was half the people really liked it, enjoyed it, and then other people were like, why did they do that? Why did they think of that? So
my only response would be to them and not to you. My only response would be that from, once again, a thematic standpoint, it represents the parenthood and the safety element that without the baby, it would be about the two kids, and they're not so I know your peers aren't saying this, but it's not like they're replacing the kid.
Right.
From an even bigger standpoint that I think could be argued against, but it is kind of like it is a pro-life kind of message idea that Emily Blunt is a woman and in control of her body, and she is allowed to do whatever she wants.
Right.
And even if everything under the sun tells you that this will be a risky thing, if that's something they want, then they have absolutely every right to do it and to make that happen.
And you can already see, family means a lot to them anyway. So they, want to have a family, then go for it. Yeah.
And that's the only way this race is going to continue.
Exactly.
Everyone else, they're all the same family. Yeah. No one else can make a baby except for the two of them.
Like children of men.
Yeah, exactly.
So I thought
that's a really interesting,
Yeah, someone I talked
Any other reasons they hated it?
I think that was just, I think they didn't hate it, but I think
know.
that was something they thought, they're like, oh, why, they complained about that. But I was like, well, they kind of, in the plot, it helped the plot, it kept things rolling. So I didn't really think of that until they mentioned it. So I thought it was an interesting conversation to have.
Absolutely. I think it's just a huge character motivator for the both of them, is to have an immediacy to the danger is the kids are unsafe, but we'll go get to them. The baby's coming. Nothing's stopping this baby.
And then you think, okay, we have to be really quiet. That's the whole movie. And then you think, you have to, what's something that you cannot be, and it's labor. You cannot be it's, known for people screaming and being in pain. You can't keep quiet.
And it's a natural thing. It's not a toy. It's not something, it's not avoidable.
Raises the stakes, that's for sure. So,
big time.
Yeah.
And I'm not a woman, but, and I can't physically have a baby, but that's still, anytime that's a theme or a part of a film, it's always I think I've seen a lot of women give birth this year on TV. It was this movie, Handmaid's Tale. I watched. I forgot the name of that actress, but it is a tour de force when she has to give birth to that baby all by herself next to the fireplace in that scene. And I'm loving it. I'm loving seeing women portrayed giving birth as it's not a story beat for something else to happen. It is very important to the woman, and it is a huge part of her life. And I really identify with that, in a way that maybe is inappropriate, but it's just the idea of I have life in me. It's not a dump. It is something really important to not just me. They could be something, and there's something that there's a huge responsibility to that. And I'm not trying to put words in any woman's mouth. I'm just saying how I feel about it.
No, for sure.
So the last theme that I noticed was a kind of monasticism that they do. It's really easy to imagine this as a Buddhist temple, that there are some places like this that take vows of silence and walk around barefoot and only do things that care for themselves or for the land around them. And it speaks to a respect to both nature, in that they are terrified of the monsters around them and are forced to respect nature, and also an abandonment of the material because they can't have it. There are tons of things they simply can't have. That still work, ideally, that they just can't use anymore. They probably have CDs and records, and they have the iPod.
Yeah, they have the iPod.
That's the thing. That was a big thing, because it takes place in, so the gravestone for Bo says he lived from, I think it was 2018 to 2020. 2020. Yeah, so this movie takes place in the near future, 2021. But that said, everything's still pretty grounded, and I like that because it seems like once upon a time movies were like, oh, it's 2 years in the future, everyone's got flying cars and jetpacks and stuff. Now it's much more realistic. Like, it's the future, nothing's different.
Yeah.
Nothing's different.
The only difference is there's just a monster
Yeah,
parading
exactly.
around.
Yeah. One more thing. I would be so pissed if I was Marcus and my mom was teaching me math and science and stuff. And I'm like, society doesn't exist anymore. These kids remember before. They remember the before four. Like, it was only a few months ago or a year.
Yeah.
They still have memories of TV and their friends and stuff like that. So, God,
I don't need division. I have to learn how to, kill a fish.
Yeah, exactly. I need to know how to like whittle or something. Yeah, I'd be so pissed. But I never liked homework in the first place. He seemed like a really dutiful kid.
Yeah.
So, did you have anything else you wanted? Did you have any other notes?
I think maybe the one other thing
was
I wrote that, I think since they're all trying to cope from the death of the youngest, they're all together, but they're all secluded. I think, and I wonder if, since they can't talk, if they were able to talk, they would be able to kind of solve the issue, if that makes any sense. So I thought that was interesting. I was like, if they actually, for some reason, if the monsters disappeared and they were actually able to speak, would they be able to work out the issues, John's character and then Reagan, would they be able to, not like saying, oh, we got to get into therapy and discuss your issues and
family meeting,
they're secluded in a sense where they can't really always say what's on their mind. They just have to keep quiet. So I thought,
that's fascinating. I love that. The idea that the lack of sound is isolating them from connecting from each other. Oh, that's so good. Yeah. That's great.
I thought, well, yeah, they kind of just have to sit in silence and eat their dinner, and they can't say, how was your day? How are you feeling? It's more, okay, here we go, eating dinner.
It's like necessity.
Yeah. So I just thought of that.
Also, my God, if the only board game I had to play was Monopoly, I think I'd kill myself.
I know. I was like,
the worst
I
game.
hate that game. It goes on forever.
Yeah.
But they have a lot of time, so I guess
that's true. And they're playing like by the rules too, when they have no pieces. They're
the felt star.
Yeah, that was really cute. And then when he knocks over the lantern, man, it's such a good moment. Such a good moment.
When I was watching it last night, my computer, it was delayed a second, so they were still smiling while the crash happened, and I was like, huh? And then I was like, oh, it's delayed, so I was like, I need to watch that all over again.
That's definitely happened with me. It'll be like when a character pauses or something, and I'll be like, wow, that's a really long pause. Oh, it's frozen.
Yeah. Oops.
So if without further ado, the last thing that we like to talk about is we like to rate our movies based on anything we want under the sun, based on whatever you want. We like to rate it on a scale of 1 to 5 thumbs, 1 being the worst and 5 being the best. Aileen, what'd you think of A Quiet Place?
I really, really like this. I think I would say maybe 4 out of 5 thumbs up. I think you really need to see this movie in theaters. I know it's not in theaters anymore, so it's really hard, but when I went into the theater and saw it, everyone was quiet. Everyone, no popcorn. Someone sneezed and I got mad at them. And I was like, be quiet.
It'll take you out of it.
Yeah, it's one of those movies that really pulls you in, and with the surround sound, everything like that, everything was amplified. And it's one of those movies that sometimes I feel like things, movies nowadays, there are bits and pieces that take you out of it. And, if you're at home, you look at your phone, you'll check Twitter for a hot second, and then, look up and resume. But this movie really caught my attention the whole time, and I think it was just because it was so simple. We got, okay, hey, they need to be quiet, and that's how they survive. All right, moving on, what's gonna happen next? It was so simple that I think that it really was perfect in that sense. So I really enjoyed it. I think 4 out of 5. If you need to see it, you do need to see it. I think it was great. I think it was one of my favorites of the year. I think, definitely trying to see it in a theater or some way where the sound can be really amplified, and, you can really just take it all in. So how about you?
Probably find a screening or something, or rent out a theater if you can, through Fathom or whatever you can.
Yeah.
So typically we assign our thumbs to characters within the movie. Ooh. So who do your 4 thumbs belong to? You can spread them out, or you can give all 4 to one person, I suppose.
I think tied between Emily and Millicent. I think those 2 characters were super awesome. I think their just acting was phenomenal, and I also think their characters were really strong, and I really admired and I liked watching them and seeing, how they're going to progress throughout the movie. So yeah.
Gotcha. Well, you asked me what I thought.
Yeah.
I love A Quiet Place, and historically, it feels kind of weird to do this part because we've typically picked movies that no one would ever think were really 5 thumbs, because I mean 5 stars. No one's gonna go home and say that this is the best movie of the year. This might have been one of the best movies of the year, certainly one of the best horror movies of the year. And I'm trying to remember what some of the past ones I've given 5. Have you seen Society? I gave that one 5 thumbs because I freaking love the body horror in that. Yeah, that's a classic.
I'll have to watch it.
Yeah, it's filmed a lot in L.A., specifically Beverly Hills. Yeah,
nice.
Really fun. And Van Nuys. There's a shot of one of the high schools in Van Nuys. I gave that 5 thumbs, but A Quiet Place is on a completely different level than anything I've ever covered on the podcast, and I'm flattered that you brought it to me because I don't know when I would watch this film, but I'm glad I finally did. And just like you, I typically, I will usually have like a whole page of notes when I'm watching this. My notes end about 2/3 of the way down because literally as soon as I gasped, this is the last thing I wrote. I stopped writing because I was so sucked into it, and that usually never happens. I'm usually like keeping things down. So yeah, this movie was freaking amazing. I love the themes. Every single actor. Sometimes child actors can get like no offense. Child actors could. I guess, no offense, that's why you do your job so well, is to make sure that what I'm about to say doesn't happen to most people, is child actors can get kind of grating and like, God, sometimes they're just like eyes wander and they're just like, their body language is so like not genuine and something about that. But these kids, these
performances were great.
These are kids and they're professionals. These are professional actors. They did an amazing job, especially Reagan. Played by, like you said, Millicent Simmons. I want to see her in more stuff. I want to see more deaf actors and actresses.
Me too.
I want to see these kinds of stories. So this one in particular being the first of many, hopefully to come. Not Quiet Place sequels, but more movies featuring deaf themes and experimenting with sound. And the monsters aren't even like, they don't need to be that visually interesting. It's just about the family, and they're more of a dressing. They're more of a setting for everything. So that said, everything under the sun, I loved this movie. I'm going to give it 5 thumbs.
Yay!
And, and I'm going to give those thumbs to several of the people that died in this movie. I'm going to give 1 thumb to Bo, because he's going to need it wherever he is right now. I'm going to give another thumb to Lee, the dad, John Krasinski, because he did an amazing job protecting his kids. I'm going to give 1 to the old lady who we never met, but I'm sure she was great. I'm sure she had some wonderful stories to tell, or sign or whatever. I wonder how those other people were getting by. They probably didn't know sign language.
No.
And they probably weren't engineers and all of that stuff. They were probably doing way worse. And finally, I'll give... Oh, wait, that's 3. So 4, my 4th thumb I'll give to the old man, so that they can hook thumbs with his wife in heaven. And then the last thumb I'm going to give to the raccoon that a lot of people forget about. There's
unsung hero.
There are 5 deaths in this movie. Bo, Lee, the old lady, the old man, and that little raccoon. That poor thing doesn't make it. One of the few animals. There's probably a couple scavengers that are like quiet, like snakes and stuff that are still around. But so that's A Quiet Place. Aileen, did you have anything else you wanted to add before we wrap up here?
No, thanks for having me. It was a lot of fun to chat about it.
Absolutely. So is there anywhere that people can find you online? Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, or do you not want people to find you online?
Don't find me. I don't have anything yet, but maybe in the future you can be able to find me. Sorry, I just almost coughed there.
Is there anywhere we can find your work? Is there somewhere we should be watching out for when that script is done?
Oh, man. I feel so unprepared.
Not to blow up your spot. That's fine.
That's okay. I'm just like, oh no, I don't have anything ready. I'm probably the most unprepared professional in LA about that. I'm like not ready to, you know what, maybe eventually you'll be like, oh, I recognize that name. Okay, so right now I don't, so sorry.
No, that's fine. Sounds like a challenge to whoever out there thinks they're the least prepared person.
Yeah, exactly.
Watch out, Aileen's walking around out there. Well, thanks a lot for coming in.
Thank you.
The gory days